Welcome back to Gabbing Geek, your occasional podcast where we talk about movies and science fiction and fantasy and comic books and superheroes and board games and breakfast cereals and all things geeky. This is episode 65 and a half, which we're going to call Hijacked. You may note who is not here. We do not see Jenny gives awesome things to 10 Newman, William wanted at least 10 counties Watson, or Ryan has seen Hamilton at least 10 times Garcia. Instead, you are joined by Jimmy, not at all implausible impossible, and myself, Tom, going to crank it up to 11, Kelly. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm good. Nicely done on the intro.
We have one viewer here. Bianca said she's never heard me talk so much all at once. I'd like to think it's because I get a word in edgewise this time.
That's true.
Yes.
We'll have to be careful of dead air with this one. With no.
Oh, I'm sure they'll get to this eventually. You know, we stole the name and everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know what? They normally start the show with the geekiest news of the week. Well, we're going to alter a little bit. We're going to go with a Gnom, the geekiest news of the moment. So, Jimmy, what do you got for us?
I guess the biggest thing I've seen this week is all the E3 announcements out in LA. Tom, I don't think you're much of a gamer, but yeah.
I play World of Warcraft, and because it's easy. And that's about it.
Okay. Well, this week the announcements that piqued my interest. The first one that I saw actually was this weekend. Not so much announcement, but teaser trailer and teaser images for the Telltale Batman and Walking Dead games. If you haven't, you don't even watch Walking Dead, so it's all nothing to you. But
I do know roughly what it's about.
Okay, there are zombies, yeah, and they get killed and they kill people. So, but anyway, the first 2 seasons of the Walking Dead game are fantastic, and they're set in Kirkman's comic book universe. So we saw a trailer for season 3, and a similar, I guess, announcement for the Batman game. Not a trailer, but just images. So if the Batman game can live up to the Walking Dead game, I think it'll be a hit. Any interest in the Batman game?
What system could you play it on?
It's probably going to be all systems. I don't know for sure, but
because I have like a Nintendo Wii gathering dust in my closet, and because
probably not for the Wii.
Yeah, not for that one. No.
So second up,
the bowling was good on that game. I'll tell you that system. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, bowling.
yeah, came with it. Best bowling I've ever done.
Perfect. So the second announcement, which was a in development PS4 game, which I posted on gabbinggeek.com, where
a wonderful website with great contributors,
as written and starring Tom Kelly. Yeah. So if you go to our site, you can see the teaser trailer there. It's still in development. It looks pretty good. There's a spin, I'll call it, on the Spider-Man uniform, which may or may not interest people. But it looks really good. Unfortunately, we have no idea when it's going to be coming out.
Did they include the hyphen?
They did.
Okay.
So, always important to have the hyphen in there. So, any interest in the Spider-Man game? No.
Well, video games are fun, and there are many people who enjoy them, and they might even be part of our audience.
I hope so. It's in the intro.
If you're not Right now, you're our audience.
I think Ryan interested. Now whether it'll build enough to get him to actually play it is another story. But and of course I'll probably check it out.
I would expect you to, Jimmy. You got to figure out where the Spider-Man game fits in the chronology.
That's right. It's not.
Is it Secret Wars? Who knows?
It's not part of the movie chronology, is from what I've been told. It's a more.
Which movie chronology is that one?
The new, like Sony Marvel chronology.
Okay, we're not talking about the Nicholas Hammond 1970s TV version,
No, though that would be interesting to see. So finally, Sony pulled out their heavy hitters with their pushing the virtual reality for the PlayStation, which I think is coming out the fall. I'm not sure. I know the price point is $399 US, so it's about $8,000 Canadian. So whether I'll get one of those or not remains to be seen. But they do have some good-looking games. What's that?
Tell him to get a job.
Yes. Yeah, he's pretty dead weight. So there was a Batman. Yeah, there is an echo, Tom, from your speakers.
Well, if I turn my speakers off, I can't hear you.
So there's a Batman virtual reality game coming. So lots of Batman games if you're into Batman. It's a murder mystery, and you play Batman. And the second is a Star Wars Battlefront game, where I believe you're an X-Wing pilot. So there's a trailer for that floating around, and there's a trailer for the Batman one, though that doesn't really show much of anything.
Okay then.
But I'm curious to see how much this VR takes off. I know that they've tried other things in the past. I've never played the Oculus Rift or anything, the more recent ones, but.
Well, that would cost about $20,000.
Exactly. and from what I've heard, the Batman game is only an hour's worth of playtime. So I don't know about the Star Wars Battlefront game, but it seemed.
Well, who'd want to be Batman for more than an hour?
I guess it depends on how much you could also be Bruce Wayne. That could be fun too.
Yes, all the trauma of your childhood would, of course, make it very much worth your while there. Did you have anything else to add?
No, there's a lot of E3 announcements. Unfortunately, we haven't covered too much on our excellent website, but go check out the E3 sites. I know there's another game. I can't remember the name, but starring Norman Reedus of Walking Dead, and all types of different games have been announced.
Does that Norman Reedus game include a motorcycle of some kind? Because he apparently
does, and we can touch on that later. But I think the only image I've seen is him shirtless on a raft. So I think they just hooked in all the female audience. So.
Well, let's not sell short the
those as well. Whoever is interested in a shirtless Norman Reedus, sounds like that's your game.
Yes. Okay, well, that sounds good, Jimmy. Now, I myself have a Ganom,
okay,
as we're calling it. I, of course, at a wonderful website, gabbinggeek.com, have been doing Simpson write-ups for quite some time now. I just passed recently the 100th of those entries went up. I do one a day, every weekday. They add up after a while. And I usually write them far in advance. But the thing is, I didn't want to bring this up before, but there was more interesting news, but it's just you and me now, so we're not getting drowned out by, we'll say, Watson and Jenny and Ryan. They did a live episode of The Simpsons recently. And not as in they had actors dressed up as the characters, like they had and it was the end of the episode, They voice of Homer, Dan Castellaneta, and if you factor in the time that he did on the Tracy Ullman show up to now, he's basically been playing Homer for almost 30 years.
It's crazy.
And he's an improv trained comedian, and they found some kind of motion capture so that Homer was sitting at a desk taking questions from the home viewers. So The Simpsons was my favorite show for quite some time, but I stopped watching years ago because it's not as good as it used to be. Then again, what is?
Walking Dead, good, perhaps. Yeah. Game of Thrones for you, maybe.
But Breaking Bad, when you eventually get to it, I think it's going to be in your country sometime next 2 years. Hopefully, yes. But I was just kind of curious, like how it would turn out, and so they had him. Basically, it was Homer sitting at a desk, and they had some calls come in. There was usually a pause after the question. I don't know if that was Castellaneta thinking of an answer or just a pause in technology, but it didn't really seem like it did much for me, to be perfectly honest. It was a nice gimmick. I think the more interesting stuff was they had animation of other characters from the show doing things while Homer was answering questions. Like he's sitting in a bare room, and at the end of it, the walls collapse, and it's the Simpsons' living room. Mr. Burns is like trying to catch a butterfly in a net, and he succeeds, but the butterfly flies him away because he's so lightweight. That sort of stuff. So how good were Homer's answers? I don't know. I don't even remember any of them. So draw your own conclusions there. And that's that. Since we have a renowned Star Wars fan, Bianca, listening in, Jimmy, did you see that Mark Hamill was asked by a female fan if it was okay if she dressed as Luke Skywalker for a convention? What his answer was? It was, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but it's going to come close as I can. He was, gender matters not when you rock the Force that way, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, Hamill's been trying to push an LGBT character on Star Wars as well. Like, he seems to be pretty pro that going that route. Now, whether it's Luke specific or not, I mean, who knows? Especially since he's Rey's father, it's going to get awkward.
Well, if he's Rey's father, he could be Rey's who knows what. It would be a really neat trick if Rey is not related to anybody. We've been playing with you this whole time. Who's Rey's parents? Well, you never met them. Oh.
But back to The Simpsons. I mean, it's obviously a gimmick. I mean, what isn't, especially when it's his 27th season, I think, this year, something. So
just finished 27th.
Yeah,
28th already scheduled.
I still watch it on occasion, and I have all the recent episodes on my PVR that just never seem to get to them because I'm too busy watching Batman or Voltron or something something else. Apparently so, yeah. That's why I got no time for Breaking Bad and other stuff I need to be watching. But I've been meaning to check that out just to see. I mean, just to see how they pulled it off. But the show itself, it's funny. I find that once they went high def is when it really went downhill for me. Those first half dozen high def episodes were just terrible. I think it has bounced back, but it obviously doesn't grab you the way it did 15 years ago, which is scary to think about.
I try to think about my students are younger than The Simpsons. I mean, I'm teaching 18 to 22-year-olds, and The Simpsons have been around longer.
I was thinking about something similar today, and that I'm just in my Spider-Man chronology getting to where the alien costume appears, and I was thinking that so many people now, along the lines of your students, they know Venom, and they've always grown up with Venom. You know, he's been around that long. Similar to Simpsons, it's always been on TV. You know, it's just a different world.
Well, it's the peril you get for getting older. I mean, at some point, Jimmy, we're going to reach an age where we're going to meet young people who are going to say Henry Cavill was the one true Superman.
Oh God.
I might know why. I took my 13-year-old niece to Bat Soup, and she hadn't seen Man of Steel, had no knowledge of the character, aside from what little I told her before the movie, and she really enjoyed Bat Soup. So for her, Henry Cavill is Superman.
And Affleck is Batman.
And Ben Affleck is Batman.
Yeah. Let's not talk about Bat Soup.
If only there was someone here who could do a segue for us.
Unfortunately, there's not. But
speaking of lack of segues, Jimmy, normally segues are the work of one William Watson, Esquire.
I thought you were going to say Junior then. I don't know if that's right or not. But Esquire.
You're talking about gimmick shows. I'm waiting for the episode where Besher and Clayton co-host. Okay.
It could be soon. After this episode,
probably also have to include. They'll probably also have to include like the Moose and Jenny's cat to fill out the other two corners. But the lack of Watson means we don't have the segues, but it also means we can talk about all the stuff we weren't allowed to speak about.
Ryan is here.
Because Ryan joined.
So as I was saying,
okay,
Ryan, he's just the greatest guy ever, really.
Ryan is such a fantastic, swell human being that we all love and admire.
He is my hero, no doubt.
He's a handsome man, and Jimmy never disagrees with him on anything. Krull is
like
just
two peas in a pod.
No, I can't praise Krull. There's a limit to this. Okay. But the lack of Watson means we can talk about things that Watson never finished, such as a pair of Netflix programs that are of great interest to the greater geek community. I refer, of course, to Jessica Jones, never discussed particularly well on the Gabbing Geek podcast, or Daredevil Season 2, only touched upon briefly at one point. But so I think we should cover that a bit. What do you think, Jimmy?
City of Steers, I guess we'll talk about that as well.
Did you finish that, Jimmy?
Didn't, because I didn't start it, but if you want to...
Well, okay, that's a good reason not to finish.
No, I'm joking. But, yeah, we can talk about Daredevil and Jessica Jones and maybe something else that Watson doesn't like. Maybe comic books or something.
Well, funny you should say it, though. Okay. Going to save Voltron for another time, Bianca asked. I have not seen Voltron, and I wasn't planning on seeing Voltron because I was not a fan back in the 80s. I don't know why. One of my friends heard of Voltron.
Myself and Ryan are watching and posting, and so check out gabbinggeek.com for our reviews. Website. We're only up to episode 2 because Ryan he's a fantastic guy, but super, super busy. So, but
of course, well, when you're a fantastic guy like Ryan, you're going to be. Is he still listening?
He's always listening.
Okay. All right. So, which one would you like? I want to say this about Jessica Jones. And I was in Austin last December. I went to a local toy store to buy gifts for my 2 nieces. And I walked in, and there was like a little section for the more, I guess, familiar science fiction type universes. And up the top, there was one of those cardboard cutouts of David Tennant. And I did a double take because I just finished Jessica Jones. I was like, why would you put the purple man? Oh, wait. That's his Doctor Who persona. Okay. Because he was creepy.
So, and since you touched on Doctor Who, I haven't watched any Doctor Who, so he was new to me, as was Kristen Ritter, because as we've alluded to already, I'm only just barely into Breaking Bad. Actually, at this point now, I'm about season 3, so no spoilers. But at the point I watched Jessica Jones, I had only maybe seen her in one episode. So she was a fresh face to me, as was David Tennant, and I thought they both were just fantastic.
They were. I actually would rank Jessica Jones ahead of Daredevil in terms of overall quality. I don't know how you feel
Season
about
one?
That, but I at the time that I finished Jessica Jones, I wrote up. I did say I thought it was better than Daredevil.
I give Daredevil the edge, though it's really close, and I can see, depending on your personal preferences, that you could sway one way or the other. When I wrote up a review at the time, I think I gave it an 8.5, with Daredevil season 1 being a 9. So they're pretty close. I thought that both season 1s were they knocked it out of the park. Really set up the Netflix universe going forward.
Well, the thing I liked about Jessica's show was, I didn't think it was perfect. One of the things I've had about the Netflix series is, and I actually agree with Watson on this one, I kind of wonder if they're stretching the plot along a little too much by doing a mandatory 13 episodes.
Yeah, I commented on that in my write-ups as well. I felt like both Daredevil season 1 and Jessica Jones could have been maybe 11 episodes, just to kind of tighten them up a bit. Don't ask me to say what I would edit out, but they did feel a bit long at times. But you were always still interested. Didn't drag to the point where you weren't interested in watching it, or you weren't going to tune in for the next episode. But I agree that they.
Well, I could point to something in Jessica Jones I thought was just, for the most part, extraneous, and that was the Jerry Hogarth divorce subplot.
Yeah.
That just seemed to be there. I mean, it had a payoff at the end when Jerry killed Grave home, but by and large, I think it thematically that it worked for what I think they were trying to accomplish with Jessica Jones, which was very much about how people in power abuse that power, and that might be why. Because apparently, the Jerry Hogarth character in the comic book source is a male lawyer who knows Iron Fist. So by switching it to a female, they can kind of say that it's not a gender thing; it's a power thing. She had the power in that relationship. She was abusing it, both with her wife and with her girlfriend. Because the girlfriend, of course, was a secretary, intern in her office. So all kinds of ethical violations there. And it's not as icky as what Kilgrave was up to, of course. But it wasn't, So there was very much a power thing. And one thing I really liked about Jessica Jones, too, was the relationship between Jessica and her girlfriend, Patsy. I thought it was a very well-developed friendship between the two characters. Kind of dare I say it, a girl.
There's a lot of girl power, and for sure going around, and that it's even Patsy's training to be Hellcat, if they'll ever actually call her that, or she'll appear as kind of a suited hero. Probably not, but who knows?
Well, we have a question here from Bianca, again, our apparently only viewer. Maybe they knew that what they were doing with Hogarth, isn't she supposed to be in Luke Cage and or Iron Fist as well?
She did show up in Daredevil season 2. So wouldn't surprise me if she cameos in Luke Cage, but
I don't think she's going to be a regular character, and in either of those. But in Luke Cage is set in a different neighborhood for one thing. He's going to be in, I think, Harlem instead of Hell's Kitchen. Can I just say though, I was very impressed by, I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy playing Luke Cage. I thought he was very good in that role. I mean, I really want to see Luke Cage's show now.
He was great. I don't recall his name either. I think his name is just Luke Cage.
I mean, I remember I thought there was a point where I was like, I would have really liked to see Terry Crews is Luke Cage.
Oh, yes,
I don't know
yeah.
if you know who that is.
The ex-football player?
But he's a little busy on...
That guy, yeah.
Ex-Old Spice man. President in the movie Idiocracy. Yes, that guy. Currently on Brooklyn Nine-Nine with Andy Samberg. So he's a little busy. But he's a big, muscular, charismatic guy. And thought he'd make a great Luke Cage. But no, I think they got a better Luke Cage, especially for the tone that they're probably going for. Nothing against Terry Crews, but I think his Luke Cage would have been a little sillier. Yeah. Which would have fit if they were going for a real true 1970s
with the tiara and
Cage.
The yellow shirt. Yeah.
The yellow shirt and the fact that Luke Cage went to Latveria to beat up Dr. Doom.
Okay, I don't know that
$20
one. Sounds right.
It's right up there with Thanos in the helicopter and that Spider-Man Hellcat team up for really bizarre stories from that period.
Yeah, I thought all the casting was great. I can't recall anybody that really stood out as weak there. Who else? No, go ahead.
Well, I had confidence.
Who else?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had confidence in Kristen Ritter as soon as I heard about the cast.
Have you read the books?
A fantastic choice.
Have you read Alias?
Pardon me? I did. There was actually, especially in the pilot, a number of scenes and conversations lifted directly from the first few issues of Alias. Jessica throwing a disgruntled client out of the window of her door. The post-sex scene with Luke Cage. Like they framed it, they showed it pretty much exactly the way it was in the old Alias comic. So I guess if they're going to continue that, she's going to have a relationship with Scott Lang at some point. But
it's definitely on my to-read list. I haven't yet, but it comes recommended. Even Mr. Watson, I don't read comics anymore, recommends it. So, yeah.
Yes, he does. It's was one of the first Marvel sort of mature readers books, so it's got Jessica's swearing is possibly even worse than it was in the show. The show has like a PG-13, so you can stick to it. I mean, like I said, I have a 13-year-old niece, and she loves the Marvel movies. If she asked me, I would let her watch Daredevil.
No, and that's
but I don't think I'd let her watch.
I was going to say your rating was a good segue to one of the more surprising bits of Jessica Jones was the amount of sex that is in it, especially compared to the other Marvel, I guess, movies and TV shows, which. Yeah,
America's like 90, nothing in one kiss.
Other movies, and there was a lot. There was no nudity, but there was a lot of sex scenes, especially in the first half. Jessica and
it was not like it wasn't like regular TV sex where you just they were shaking the bed, and that was like
Jessica and Luke, especially with their powers, were just destroying the whole room pretty much. So that
I loved it when Luke. This is something when Luke and Jessica get in that bar brawl early on. Jessica thinks she has to go save Luke from all those ruffians, and compare the way the two engage in the fight. Jessica just kind of wades in, starts throwing punches. She's wild. She's crazy. There's no style. Luke just looks bored.
Well, it's his bar too.
He's like slow, steady, like a guy who can't get hurt would be. He's just like shrugging things off, like, all right. He doesn't actually get show anything more than that sort of boredom, so to speak, in his action scenes until the last episode. The last couple episodes he appears in when Kilgrave has him attack. Oh, by the way,
I was just thinking that when you started saying
spoilers for this conversation.
But I didn't Ryan set up a timeline? I think we're pretty safe
for a 6-month-old Netflix series.
But yeah, definitely spoilers for this in season 2 of Daredevil, maybe even season 1, I guess. But touching on.
But
sorry, go ahead.
I loved when Luke showed off his. Oh, I'm sorry. I loved when Luke showed off his powers with the bandsaw in Jessica's apartment. You can't fix me.
Very M. Night Shyamalan. But that's right.
Except there's no crazy twist at the end that makes people go.
But speaking of the powers, I actually
again?
found not Luke, but when they tried to show Jessica's powers, probably the biggest part of the show. And I think in one of your write-ups, you mentioned, they really could have just slightly changed it so that there was didn't really even need her to have her powers. The show was strong enough without, and she rarely used them. But it just seemed, and I found you never really had a good sense of how powerful she actually was. Because there was times when she'd hold her own in the Luke Cage fight at the beginning of the bar, but other times she was getting thrown around, and it was and maybe it was just all the drinking she was doing that kind of numbed her.
Well, in the source material, her powers are inherently unreliable. Like, they don't always work as well as they should. Sometimes she can fly, sometimes she can't. How strong she is seems to go back and forth. How resistant to injury she is seems to go back and forth. But I didn't mind that so much. I think the thing was that Jessica was strong, but not necessarily indestructible. Luke was indestructible and stronger than most people, but maybe not as strong as she is physically. So almost when they do come to blows, it is sort of a irresistible force meeting an immovable object.
It worked out well too at the end that they were the combatants, because obviously Tennant would have no chance physically against Jessica. Yeah.
He had other ways.
So what did you think of the whole Nuke storyline and aspect?
I was fine with that because, Jessica Jones, in the grand scheme of things, is a relatively new character.
Right.
So she has a huge
was
gallery
Nuke
of
in the source material? Yeah.
No, Nuke is more of a Daredevil, Wolverine foe. He's supposed to be. I think Grant Morrison, when he was writing X-Men, clarified that the Weapon X program, he's not Weapon X, he's Weapon 10. And there was 9 weapons before him. Captain America was actually Weapon 1, and Nuke was like Weapon 3. It was a failed experiment to produce a super soldier, and that's essentially what he is. He's a somewhat cybernetic guy. He has to take special color-coded pills.
When the color-coded pills show up, I was familiar with them mostly from Born Again, the Daredevil storyline. So I was pretty giddy when I saw it. The only part of it that I thought stretched was that the Purple Man had just randomly sent this one police officer to Patsy's apartment, who just happened to be Nuke. If you think about that too much, it kind of weighs on it. But.
Jimmy, need I remind you that Peter Parker fails to stop one criminal, and that guy goes clear across town to one random house.
Fair enough.
Comic books are built on coincidence. Superman, last survivor of the planet Krypton, except for one other person who just happens to be his first cousin. Billions of possible people on the planet, 2 survivors.
Fair enough.
Close relatives.
Jessica Jones.
Did anything else you want to throw there about Jessica Jones there, Jimmy?
No, I thought it was. I was surprised. I was wondering, starting off, if they could pull off taking basically to most of the populace an unknown character. Like with Daredevil, he had a pretty established, people knew who he was either from the comics or from the Ben Affleck movie or whatever. But Jessica Jones was a complete unknown, and I thought, given that, they really stepped up and they managed to make her a star, I guess. And like I said, they were on. It was on par with Daredevil season 1 for sure.
Okay.
You think slightly better? I think slight. I don't want to say worse, but almost as good.
They were close. They were close. I just think for me personally, Jessica had a slight edge on Daredevil. And I couldn't tell you what it is about Jessica, aside from the thematic stuff I talked about, that makes it better than
and you
Daredevil,
mentioned you wouldn't let your niece watch it. It was definitely the darkest thing that I think Marvel had done until Daredevil season 2. As if you want to segue into that, but
I
think Daredevil season 2 was darker in a different way. Jessica Jones was much more psychological, whereas Daredevil season 2 was surprisingly violent to me.
Yeah,
this is from someone who watches zombies eat people's faces pretty much every week. But
who would have thought adding the Punisher and a woman who fights with short swords
exactly
to the narrative would make a show more violent?
Just the graphicness of it, not necessarily, the violence of the all the gang guys getting killed and stuff, but just there was people with, and again, spoilers for Daredevil season 2, people getting power tools put through their body, and people, shotguns to the blasts to the face, and all in clear view of the camera. Which, I'm not overly squeamish, but I was just like, really, this seems a bit unnecessary. Then,
Well, I mean, it's like I said, can you do a story with Elektra and the Punisher and not up the violence? I mean, Wilson Fisk is no gentle, kind-hearted soul.
Yeah.
But
I guess to me it was just a distinction.
But he did everything with his bare hands.
Like, I was fine with the violence, but the graphicness of it I found was a bit over the top. But it seems to be the nature of things now, because we've alluded to, not that you watch Walking Dead, but we've talked about it a little bit, and every week, just like everything else, they're trying to push the limits of what they can pull off, and different ways that people get killed, and etc. But I wasn't a big fan of that aspect of it, for sure. But I agree. I mean, with the Punisher and Elektra there, and no Bullseye, it was still it was a bit graphic for me, but to each their own.
You're going to have a lot of fun when you get to Game of Thrones. You're going to be like, man, I missed the relative G-rated sanity of The Walking Dead. But I found that, let me just start off by saying for our listener, hi Bianca, that I was never a big Punisher fan. I always found the character to be, at best, two-dimensional. And I did read a good chunk of Garth Ennis's Punisher run, and I thought he had I think he even actually said in an interview that the Punisher, if you try to make the Punisher run a two-dimensional character, you're going to lose something. He is just a killing machine.
Yeah.
And so,
as is Greg Rucka's more recent.
And he had some really good Punisher stories. I did read like a trade of off Comicology of the Punisher versus the Avengers from Greg Rucka, and I really he treated all the characters with a great deal of respect. There were no idiots, which is a big change from when Garth Ennis had superheroes guest starring in the Punisher, where the Punisher just was so much smarter than all of them, especially Wolverine, who apparently had his hates. But I really was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed the Punisher storyline in the show this year for Daredevil. I was not expecting much of the Punisher. I've not seen The Walking Dead, so I know it was a Walking Dead actor as Frank Castle. I thought he gave him a nice of humanity, which seems he made dad jokes. He was like giving fatherly advice. I thought that's a good angle for that character. Yeah, he basically is the avenging parent.
Yeah, I agreed.
And so I was greatly pleased
John
with all the Punisher stuff.
He was great, and he's great in Walking Dead as well. But even when they cast him, I thought like it's not someone who would have ever came to mind as the Punisher. But once they cast him, I said, yeah, he's a really good choice. Given our Punishers of the past, Dolph Lundgren. I can't remember who was the second one. Thomas Jane, who actually I didn't mind, and then Ray Stevenson.
Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane is an actor whose name I can't forget because he has both my parents' names.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And then Ray Stevenson in that horrible Warzone movie, but yeah, he did great, and I like the Punisher aspects of it, though I thought he was a little underused, especially when he spent a lot of time, in the hospital, somewhat in the courtroom, but not a lot of time. But I really thought that they could have just stuck with the Punisher and made a really great season without the Elektra stuff, which we'll get to, which I thought was a bit weaker. But the Punisher, yeah, and of course they've announced since that the Punisher will have his own series, which should be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, especially for someone like you, who feels like they fleshed him out, if they can really pull off an entire series dedicated to him and not be two-dimensional and not just be a killing machine.
Well, I think they're off to a good start there. So yes. I'll watch it when it comes out. I probably would have anyway, but I mean,
it does.
Piece that is Gabbing Geek.
We still do that.
Requires new content on a regular basis. So.
Well, you definitely do.
I think you and I do. Once in a while, there's a cosplay article, and if it's for you, there's probably two very good reasons right up front for it.
So Punisher.
Two very Watson-approved reasons.
Punisher right thumbs up. What about Elektra?
That's innuendo, boys and girls. So, but anyway, I would have.
I agree with that.
I gotta be honest with you. The longer the season 2 went on, the less happy I was with Daredevil. And I was thinking a lot about it. I mean, part of it is the Punisher was just such a great character, surprisingly great character. And Elektra was, Elektra herself wasn't bad, but the Hand. And I thought, like, why does the Hand suck so much? And then the reason I can't even. What was the strength of both season 1 Daredevil and Jessica Jones?
Yes,
among the very they had a single focused villain. Like Wilson Fisk, Kilgrave. Focused on those guys.
And I think it says something about season 2 of Daredevil.
Villain character in the movie so far.
Outside of the Punisher stuff, the strongest part of the season was the return of Wilson Fisk. The two episodes or so that he actually appeared and there's little bits here and there. Like that stuff intrigued me. That stuff had me interested. And they kind of maybe set up season 3 or part of the Defenders. But like that stuff made me want to watch as opposed to the Hand stuff, which made me wish that it was over. Yeah.
The Hand stuff was the thing about the Hand was I kept thinking, Daredevil was a superhero legal drama last time around. How does a ninja army fit into that? And like I said, there was no it was just like a nebulous group of It was like if the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were fighting the Foot Clan.
Well, I guess Stick was Shredder, I guess.
But there was no sign of the Shredder.
Yeah, the whole Elektra. I'm not overly familiar with Elektra. Years and years ago, I'm sure I read pieces of Frank Miller's run, but I don't really know if they did her justice compared to the comic. But and the actress and stuff was fine, and her interactions with Matt and everything were fine, but just the whole storyline just didn't work for me. And then it seemed to go on, and like you said, it felt, for a series so grounded, and I know we're talking about a guy dressing up as a devil, but but for a series so grounded, it seemed to be a bit more, I don't want to say on the supernatural side, but a bit different than the realistic kind of flavor that they've been going for.
I'll
say yes, but who knows? I mean, there's some precedence there. I mean, Daredevil was trained. You could say, I guess, he was trained as a ninja, and it was by Stick, and Elektra is part of his past, etc. But I don't know, it just didn't work for me.
Well, the thing is that what bothered me, I think, the most about Elektra was, when all was said and done, she was a very weak character in that, she had so little willpower.
And I don't think Elektra is a weak character in the comics. She was just going to do what the hands told her to because it was genetic. She isn't. Right. So, they show with Jessica Jones, with Jessica, and with Patsy.
That's not like a group you walk away from.
And you could argue even Hogarth that they can show strong female characters, but that they really never did that with Elektra. I thought they were.
I think they did it. If you want to talk it's different people, different showrunners. Jessica Jones had a couple women running the show behind the scenes.
Yes.
Daredevil does not. But Daredevil does have Karen.
I like Karen. I like the actress, and I really liked her in season 1. And even True Blood, she was. Even though I gave up on True Blood, but she was good in that as well. But I just found that this season, particularly, in my review, when I wrote it up, I said that she had turned into Jack Bauer's daughter from 24. I don't know if you watched 24. Yeah, but basically she was always in the wrong spot at the wrong time, or
I saw a few seasons.
And the fact that you mentioned how she could so quickly get a job at the paper or no experience, and how, and she could always talk anyone into anything, and she could always get people to roll over on their boss or give her information, and which is fine, and it worked in season 1. But I found in season 2 there was just so much of it that it just, she was the only one that Frank would talk to. She was the only one that the mobster, the Irish guy at the beginning, would talk to. It was just over and over, and then of course she just happens to be where she gets kidnapped and so on.
Well, let me say this. You mentioned that the actress, I believe her name is Deborah Ann Wall.
I stopped about season 3.
Been on True Blood, and I did see all of True Blood, and that was a good place. That was an excellent place to stop. Okay, and True Blood was, I think, True Blood and Dexter both ended about the same time, and what I always said was True Blood was the better show, and they're both pretty bad towards the end. Mostly because I think everyone involved in True Blood knew everything they were doing was dumb. Like, there was that level of awareness in the narrative going, yeah, we know this is stupid, just roll with it. But there were a couple actors on there who managed to always turn in good performances no matter how crappy the material was, and she was one of them. So I'm kind of used to her getting subpar material, but turning in something out of it because she's just a charismatic screen presence, and it works well for her.
Yeah.
Charlie Cox, Daredevil. If he was on another HBO show, Boardwalk Empire, for a period as an Irish hitman. Again, so I know these are reliable actors. I'm not worried about it, but no real focused villain in Daredevil season 2. Once the Punisher became sort of a side plot. No,
I hated that. I pointed that out in my review as well, because he spent the whole season
hey, when this is
basically
over,
telling
why
her
don't
to
we go
go
run away
away,
together?
and then, but yes, or I'm getting too old for this shit. But one thing,
said, I've got 2 more days off to retirement.
Well, what you were saying to remind me of, I know that Ryan said when we talked about it in our office meetings that he felt like it was 2 seasons kind of joined together, and then you mentioned how the Punisher became a side plot. One of the problems that I had with, if they wanted to have both characters there, that would be fine, but the stories didn't mesh at all. It was like 2 completely different stories. Like there had to be some way that they could kind of even tie them together, because it was kind of like he'd be with the Punisher side of the story, and then he'd just get a phone call, and it's like, oh yeah, I gotta go, and then he'll deal with Elektra, and then it was just kind of back and forth, and it was just felt really disjointed, and for a lot of it, even Matt had nothing to do with the Punisher side. It was Foggy and Karen handling all of that. Yeah, and that was one of the things I said in my review, that this season, like the first season, was so much building all of their characters, and if they could make it as, say, Daredevil, but also as lawyers and defeat Fisk, like you said, a dedicated villain. Whereas season 2, I just felt like it just made Matt look like a bad lawyer and a bad friend. I didn't really find him. It didn't really put him in a very good light. Yeah.
Well, it's not like Matt would do something stupid like go to the prison and just taunt Wilson Fisk in the interrogation room. I mean, all but daring of like, look me up sometime. Go ahead. What have I got to hide? Or what I was starting to say earlier is like the scene that like bothered me the most in the entire Daredevil season was when Karen goes to Matt's place and Stick lets her in to the bedroom where Elektra is recuperating, and she gets all outraged like,
there was a lot of those
man just let you in that you don't know. What do you really
Needless to say, I wasn't
going
a huge
on
fan.
here?
We joked at the beginning how when Ryan showed up that we were peas in the pod, but myself and Ryan definitely disagree on season 2, because he really enjoyed it, and I really did not. I think
well, I think Ryan gave them extra points because they finished, as was
the third movie in trilogies,
and he finished something,
stuff that
Ryan
ends.
Likes it, so
he does enjoy that. Yeah, I'm more aligned to your.
I'm a fan of good world building in the beginning. So
I.
He and I apparently are opposites, 2 sides of the same coin. He has seen Hamilton many times. I have not seen it once. Well, you're still waiting for the Canadian version. I think it'll be called McDonald's. So, before we're getting a little been here about this for a while, Jimmy. But before we go into our sign-offs, there was, of course, the rumors of another trio of Marvel characters getting into the Netflix sort of treatment, in the form of Blade, who hunts vampires, and Moon Knight, who sometimes hunts werewolves, and Ghost Rider.
This came up briefly when we did our. I can't remember if it was the last episode when we played a game with Watson that killed the podcast again. But when we did the Rent, Own, Delete. And I think we all picked Moon Knight as the one we were most interested in. I think they could definitely do justice to any of them. I think Ghost Rider could possibly be the biggest question mark there, even though I love the Ghost Rider character. But I mean, the movies are just horrible. Obviously, they wouldn't be replicating anything from the Nick Cage movies. But like Moon Knight, like there's a lot there to work with, and as much as we might pick on Wesley Snipes for different things, like the Blade films, at least the first two are pretty good. Even the third one is not bad, but Blade can work, and Blade seems to fit in with their tone. And same with Moon Knight. I don't know if Ghost Rider is maybe a bit too supernatural for that, but yes, that's definitely a big part.
Can you make him look good? Because, okay, I saw the first Nick Cage movie, My Brother's House, once, and Ghost Rider looks silly. Okay, he's a flaming skeleton. Can you make it now? As far as the sequel went, I saw the trailer for that and a little bit of the movie when it was on free cable. The trailer looked awesome. The
second one is horrible.
TBS or FX was terrible. But at least Ghost Rider looked kind of scary. Okay, he was a skeleton with all kinds of stuff all over him. So, but a TV show, especially in the Marvel TV, and which was not exactly, while Feige may have gotten control of the movies, the TV version is still in the hands of, what's his name, Perlmutter, who's notoriously cheap. I can't imagine a TV Ghost Rider looking all that good. Unless they just kind of really cut it down so he just has some flaming hair or something, then that would work.
Like from like 80 shows where, it's 42 minutes long, 40 minutes of it is just Johnny Blaze, and then for 2 minutes at the end, he turns into Ghost Rider to solve the case or whatever it is. And then, of course, it's the same shot of him turning into Ghost Rider every time or whatever. So I can see exactly. Yeah,
he looks up. He's got red eyes all of a sudden.
Yeah. So I think that's an excellent point, though. I mean, obviously what they can do with effects nowadays is unlimited budgets is pretty amazing, but with something like Moon Knight or Blade, they could definitely sink the money in elsewhere, and
And Blade would probably be the easiest.
Yeah, you need some fangs. You throw some blood up when they explode or whatever way he kills them, and
that's you were talking about Jessica's powers earlier. Super strength is a very easy superpower to duplicate. You just got to make things that are not particularly solid or heavy look particularly solid and heavy, so that when Jessica puts her fist through it, it makes some sense.
Right.
And they've been doing that since with George Reeves.
It always gets said every time on these podcasts, we're going to all watch it probably anyway, but if I had to rank them, I would want to put Ghost Rider first, but I don't know, like you said, could they actually pull it off? So I'd probably maybe put Moon Knight first, then Blade, and then Ghost Rider.
Well, you know what, Jimmy? I think there are some lessons learned here. So, what do you think we might have learned during the course of this past,
that we learned is that we really miss Ryan and Jenny, and Watson. All right. The second thing we learned was that if they were going to make Luke Cage in the 1970s, that Terry Crews would be your guy. And the third thing. Yeah. And the third thing we learned was that Krull is a terrible, terrible movie. Who wouldn't?
I would watch Clue before Krull.
Who wouldn't?
Ryan. Well, that just about wraps things up for Jimmy and myself. If you're interested in contacting the various gabbingest of geeks, you can try with Twitter at Jenny_Newman or Woody Watts or some geek lawyer. Or
you've been working on this.
Gabbing Geek with Gabbing Geeks.
Go
there's also,
to gabbinggeek.com and tag any article that's not written by Tom Kelly.
And you can tag me in those articles not written by Jimmy that are not cosplay. And all of us at gabbinggeek.com. And in fact, if you want to email us, the Geek Mail segment, I'm sure will appear again at some point in the future. That's gabbinggeek@gmail.com. But, well, Jimmy told us what we learned today, so I guess as for both of us here at the Hijacked version of Gabbing Geek, saying, just say no to crawl.